We say to all who have attacked the Sudanese people, the hour of retribution will come.
Port Sudan has been a safe haven during the country's 2-year civil war. Until now, drone strikes by the paramilitary rapid support forces have been hitting multiple sites in the de facto capital of Sudan's military-led government. That's also a key entry point for desperately needed aid. Port Sudan is now the latest frontline in the war between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces that erupted in April 2023. It's the country's main seaport, handling up to 90% of the country's international trade. It's located in the country's far east on the Red Sea. It's been the wartime capital during the RSF's control of Khartoum, and the city has been hosting thousands of displaced Sudanese fleeing the fighting in other parts of the country. But that changed on May 4th.
The drones started striking the city twice or 3 times a day. This is considered a coward war, as long as you're not facing armies, but rather targeting strategic locations to disrupt the life in the country and to affect the livelihood of people, and people suffer.
The days-long drone assault has touched the country's biggest fuel depots and hit army bases and the main power substation, hotels with foreign officials and the presidential guest house, where General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan has offices, have reportedly been hit. Nearly all aid into Sudan flows through Port Sudan, and it's been a hub for United Nations agencies and aid operations for the last 2 years. But the drone strikes have forced the airport shut and cut off supply for the 25 million Sudanese who need aid.
The latest violence poses a growing risk to the safety of humanitarian staff and operations, with flights of the UN Humanitarian Air Service, both to and from Port Sudan, still on hold.
Sudan blames the RSF for the attacks, even though they have not claimed responsibility. They also accuse the United Arab Emirates of arming the RSF and providing logistical support, which it denies. And just days after the International Court of Justice dismissed Sudan's genocide case against the United Arab Emirates and the drone attacks, the army announced it has cut ties with the UAE.
Following this continued aggression, the Security and Defense Council decided: first, declaring the United Arab Emirates a hostile state; second, severing diplomatic relations with it; third, and finally, withdrawing and the Sudanese embassy and general consulate.
Let's hear more from Ahmed Kabalo. He is a Sudan affairs analyst and founder of African Stream. He joins us from Nairobi. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed, for making the time. So why do you think Port Sudan has been targeted this time around? And just what has been the impact of these attacks so far?
Well, Port Sudan is strategically arguably the most important location in this whole war. All of the powers that are backing both sides have very important vested interest in that port, in the Red Sea, in access to the Suez Canal, in the Gulf of Aden. But the principal reason why I think this attack has happened is the RSF suffered a devastating defeat in Khartoum state. They were forced to retreat back to Darfur, and it seemed like the Sudanese army had the upper hand. And it seemed like because the Sudanese army had the upper hand, it wasn't very keen on negotiations or offering any concessions to the RSF. And the RSF is clearly in this war on behalf of a foreign state, principally the United Arab Emirates. And the United Arab Emirates
allegations
has very
there,
important...
which it has denied, right?
Yes, I mean, it's denied it, but it's obvious.
I mean, let's talk about the people and the impact all this has had on the people in Port Sudan, because this has all along been the safe haven for thousands of people who actually fled other parts of Sudan into Port Sudan.
Yeah, exactly. All of my family members have fled Sudan. The only ones that are remaining have gone to Port Sudan because, as you described it, it was seen as a safe haven. But with the RSF strikes, which is the intention of the RSF strikes, is to turn that safe haven into a place that is unsafe, which people will have to flee again. That's the purpose of the strike. It wasn't against the Sudanese army primarily. It was against the Sudanese civilians and trying to use the suffering of the civilians to force the Sudanese army into some sort of negotiations. there's already a shortage of humanitarian aid getting into Sudan. The UN has estimated that there's 4 billion needed for Sudanese people in Sudan, and a further 1.6 billion needed for Sudanese people in neighboring countries. The international community, or the so-called international community, has managed to raise less than a sixth of that. So there's been a dire humanitarian need. The UN has already claimed that this is the worst humanitarian crisis, not only now, but ever recorded. There's over 4 million people displaced externally, over 10 to 12 million people displaced internally. This is a dire situation. And the idea that now humanitarian aid is going to be halted, the very limited humanitarian aid that there is. Let's put this into the context that Donald Trump recently stopped aid not only going to Sudan, but to many, many other countries. So Sudanese people are suffering, and this is a really bad situation, and we really need people not to get fatigued when talking about Sudan and really start fundraising, because the situation is very dire.
How about the toll on the economy, since 90% of the country's international trade goes through Port Sudan?
Yes, of course, the economy has been flatlining basically since the war. The only lifeline was Port Sudan. Now, of course, international partners are going to be thinking twice about trading through Port Sudan, at least until the situation has stabilized. There's been drone strikes for the last 4 days. There's reports that it's actually continued today, which means it's 5 consecutive days. Who knows when this is going to end? Who knows if there's, even when it ends, that there's going to be some guarantees that there won't be more strikes. So there really needs to be international pressure on the backers of the Rapid Support Forces and to strangle their supply line, because as long as they keep getting long-range surface-to-surface missiles, as long as they keep getting these sophisticated drones, the war will continue. If we stop that supply line, which the Sudanese army has accused Chad as being one of the conduits for UAE weapons to go
and
to
once
RSF.
again, those are allegations, Mr. Ahmed. Yeah, please, let's stick with that.
I did say the Sudanese army has accused.
Indeed.
I didn't say that. Yeah. So I'm making it very clear that these are the accusations from the Sudanese army.
Allegations by the Sudanese army, which once again, of course, Chad has refuted. Let's talk about drones as my last question to you, which now appears to be a change in tactics, the use of drones and the drone strikes that we've seen. Just what does this mean? Does it signal an escalation of this war?
Definitely, because the RSF is largely based in the Darfur area. Sudan, it used to be the largest country in Africa. It currently is the 3rd largest country in Africa. There's no way drones would be able to reach from Darfur to the port of Sudan. The distance is so great. So analysts are saying that these drone strikes were fired from the Red Sea. Now, if they're fired from the Red Sea, that means they're fired off the coast of Egypt, off the coast of Saudi Arabia, off the coast of UAE. So this is really escalating this conflict into a regional conflict, because international waters shouldn't be a place where sovereign nations are attacked with no oversight and with no legal justification. So this is a very dangerous and worrying escalation, and people need to get to the root of how to stop the Red Sea as being the new battleground for this war.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed Kabalo, a Sudan Affairs analyst and founder of African Stream. Thank you for your time and your contribution. To Malawi now, where a group of women is going door to door in remote villages and saving lives. They're fighting growing vaccine hesitancy fueled by cultural myths and online misinformation to ensure children receive life-saving immunizations. Lamek Masina has more from Blantyre.
These women in the Kuntembwe area are part of the Mother Care Group. It's a local initiative that faces an uphill task as they work in remote communities.
Major barriers to childhood vaccination here are widespread myths and cultural beliefs which have kept many families from vaccinating their children. They believe that it will make them infertile.
Armed with a simple tool they call the fodder tracing box, they track down families who have missed vaccination appointments. They also explain the importance of children getting a jab.
When we started the initiative, the vaccine uptake in children here was around 40%. But now it is nearly 100%, and the number of defaulters has drastically reduced.
But misinformation online is also fueling vaccine hesitancy here.
And people say, if someone from the West is seen on social media talking bad about vaccines, isn't this true? That has taken us a lot of effort to erase.
The traditional leaders have stepped in too. They are debunking myths and ensuring there is an uptick in childhood vaccinations.
I've warned my subjects here that if you don't vaccinate your children, you must leave the village. We need health to have development.
Families who once doubted vaccines are now changing their minds.
After listening to what they were telling me, I am now convinced that those myths on vaccines are misleading, and I have decided to have my child vaccinated next month.
However, distance remains a problem. In many rural parts of Malawi, the nearest clinic can be over 25 kilometers away. That's nearly double the government health policy recommendations of a maximum 10 kilometers distance.
Health officials say despite overcoming cultural and logistical barriers, the initiative is rebuilding trust in the vaccines and also raising awareness of the benefits of the vaccines and dispelling misinformation.
Lamek Masina, Africa Matters, Blantyre.
Staying in Southern Africa, we head to Lesotho now, which is battling a different public health problem. The World Health Organization says that 87 out of 100,000 people in Lesotho take their own lives every year. That's the world's highest suicide rate, and this grim statistic is more than double that of Guyana in South America, which ranks second globally. Tuso Kumalo went to Lesotho to find out why.
In November 2017, Bahlakwana Sho Lebakai lost his 20-year-old son, Mohlakwana, to suicide.
Every day he was going to school, coming back, studying when he got back. It was normal. There was nothing that I could say, this is pointing out at that.
Kahleho Mulebatsi, now 25, tried to take his own life twice.
Disappointments from the loved ones, can I say failing in my academic work, school life in general, everything that I tried to do, it failed, it affected me.
He has been receiving professional counseling since then.
From that day, I told myself, no, it's not my time to die. It's not my time to die. And let me just stop doing this. It's not my time to die.
Lesotho has only one mental health hospital available to serve its 2 million population. Experts say violence against women and girls is part of the cause. According to a 2022 report tabloid by Afrobarometer, gender-based violence in the Mountain Kingdom is as high as 64%. And the Help Lesotho NGO data shows significantly more women take their own lives compared to men. Poverty and unemployment are some of the other causes, with about 40% of Lesotho's youths jobless.
It's more prevalent actually among the young people. Mostly is because of a family background, the setup, the economic status, the challenges that they come across in their stage, peer pressure and many others.
Authorities admit more could be done to bring down the suicide figures.
We are a very fortunate country. We take our children to school. They are educated. When they come back, there is no work. So they go to drugs, they commit suicide.
Social stigma prevents many from seeking help. The daily struggles of finding food, shelter, and other necessities are a source of frustration and anxiety for many, leading some to take their own lives. Psychologists say unless the economic social conditions of people here improve, mental health awareness and counseling alone will not change the status quo. Tuso Kumalo, TRT World, Maseru, Lesotho.
To Nigeria next, where a family tragedy launched a sculptor into the world of hyper-realistic prosthetics. The artist now wants to share his gift with more of his countrymen and the world, as Dolapo Aderinokun reports from Uyo in Nigeria.
John Amanam is the founder of Immortal Cosmetic Arts. The 36-year-old sculptor and ex-movie special effect artist from Nigeria's Uyo City is seen as a trailblazer in the creation of darker-skinned prosthetics.
But when we talk of hyper-realistic prostheses, we refer to prostheses that look similar to the human skin. I mean, similar prostheses that cannot be differentiated from the human skin, the textures, the forms, the sizes, and the flexibility of the human skin. So when we talk about hyper-realistic prostheses, we are referring to prostheses that are lifelike.
Making prosthetic hands, legs, fingers, toes, ears, noses, and breasts was so rare that he registered a patent over his innovation in Nigeria. John comes from a family of artists, and he says he was thrust into manufacturing prosthetics when his brother lost some fingers in a car accident.
When I saw that there was a need in the society and that people really expected so much from me, I decided to go into deeper research and to also ensure that I do not disappoint them.
There's no national data on the number of amputees in Nigeria, but it's estimated that about 2 million Nigerians require prostheses. Like Zainab, a mother of two, who lost one of her hands in an accident. She says she can afford custom-made prostheses, which cost at least $370 US.
If I had both my hands, I would have continued my business. I would have continued my job as an hairdresser and made more progress. But I have just one hand. I can no longer make hair nor do anything with it. However, I do whatever I can with one hand, and I am putting in all my effort.
Zainab and others like her highlights an increasing need for cost-effective and functional prosthetic devices. Amputees can face discrimination and stigma, which can have impact on their social networks and mental health. In distant locations, amputees additionally have challenges in receiving prosthetic services due to Nigeria's inadequate infrastructure. Another problem that darker-skinned amputees face is simply that most artificial limbs are white. Growing awareness is making orthotics and prosthetics more popular, and that's opening up exciting opportunities for the people who need them and the industry as well. Dolapo Aderiokun, Africa Matters, Uyo, Nigeria.
And staying in the country, farmers there say they've been experiencing a striking cocoa boom in recent years, driven by rising global prices as production elsewhere in Africa falls. Rupert Stone reports on a new class of wealthy young farmers known locally as cocoa boys.
They call them cocoa boys. These are the farmers who have recently grown rich on the back of Nigeria's cocoa boom.
Cocoa boys, we have a chain. The farmers, the buyers, the cocoa store owners, the exporters, all of them are linked to this cocoa chain. And everybody who is part of this cocoa chain is benefiting.
Prices for cocoa have spiked in recent years, drawing people into the industry. This Nigerian man studied civil engineering, but returned to his homeland to open a cocoa farm. He hasn't looked back.
I haven't left civil engineering. I love it. But I have more interest in cocoa now because it's generating, if you pay annum, it's generating more money for me by the assessment of last year. The little effort put, I saw what generated. So with that, if I put more effort, and consistency, showing commitment to the farm, then I'm sure of having more outcome.
Cocoa prices rose more than fourfold from 2022 to late 2024, driven by a fall in output in Ivory Coast and Ghana, the world's top two cocoa producers. Rising prices benefited cocoa farmers in Nigeria, who were also helped by a devaluation of the local currency, which made exports less expensive. The result of this sudden boom has been a new elite of highly affluent farmers.
We're not known to be the big boys, but now, cocoa, when you hear about this cocoa, there's this mentality, this understanding that comes into you, those guys are big boys. So if you're calling me a cocoa boy, I'll accept gladly.
Nigeria is now the fourth highest producer of cocoa in the world. It remains far behind its rivals, but is catching up fast. Rupert Stone, TRT World.
As conflict devastates the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the survival of its farmers depends on resilience. Even though resources are scarce, many are returning to their abandoned fields and trying to rebuild their lives. Rumeysa Choda reports.
In the DRC's breadbasket town of Kibumba, farmers who fled the violence are now returning back home. But their journey is far from easy. Their fields are now under rebel control.
When we fled the war, we went to Kanyaruchinya, where we spent 3 years living in very bad conditions, great suffering. We spent days hungry. And when we returned home, we found people working in our fields already producing these cabbages. I had to pay money to have rights to this harvest. Relatives lent me money to achieve this in order to restart.
The International Organization for Migration says escalating clashes between the M23 rebels and the Congolese army have forced over 1.2 million people to leave their homes since January. More than 60,000 people have fled Kibumba during the earlier fighting, but 59,700 have recently returned. However, many of these returnees find destroyed homes and fields, and they lack the resources to rebuild.
We received only a little humanitarian aid so children wouldn't die of hunger. But when the war ended in this area, we returned home to Kibumba. Now we work, we have taken back our fields, and here we have also resumed market work to be able to take care of our children.
The market's closure during the fighting had a devastating impact, driving up some food prices up to 5 times more.
When the market was closed, we couldn't find vegetables. Prices were so high. But now that it's reopened, we are buying fresh produce again, and life is slowly returning to normal.
While the region still faces the risk of renewed conflict, the people of Kibumba are determined to rebuild their lives. Rumeysa Choda, Africa Matters.
To Benin now, where greater efforts are being made to increase the number of sea turtles in southern Benin. A turtle conservationist has opened a sanctuary aimed at creating a safe zone for sea turtles, a species on the brink of extinction. Brenda Radido reports.
Benin is one of the countries in West Africa where 5 of the world's 7 species of sea turtles are found. The turtles migrate the region's beaches for nesting, but the number of them coming to lay eggs on the coast of Grand Popo, a fishing town, is in decline. For years, the local community has developed a taste for turtle eggs and meat.
Over time, we noticed the number of turtles coming to lay eggs on the coast started decreasing because when we were young, we had the chance to play with these nesting turtles. But since our parents started eating them, we decided we had to do something to preserve them. Otherwise, we might not have any turtles coming to nest on the coast.
The climate crisis and plastic waste on the beach are also endangering nesting success. But Carlos Menson Bewa and his team conduct night patrols in search of turtles laying eggs and ensure the return to the ocean is safe. The Beninese conservationist also runs an organization known as a Turtle Sanctuary with a mission to protect nesting turtles and increase the survival chances of their hatchlings. But the sanctuary has faced resistance from local fishermen.
Honestly, before, turtles were something we could eat. But then they told us it was forbidden. Honestly, if we find them in the net, the turtles tear the net. We bring the turtle with the net torn to shore to show the coast guards.
For Mensah, Bewa and his team say an increasing number of turtles released over the past decade are coming back to lay eggs each year. The sanctuary provides incubation boxes until the new hatchlings are ready to be released into the ocean to start a new life. Brenda Radido, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode or ideas on what you'd like us to cover on YouTube or on X using the hashtag Africa Matters. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me, Grace Kuria Kanja.